You may be seated. We are here today for an order of protection, case number 2025-6298. The petitioner is here being represented by Mr. Scott, and the respondent is here being represented by Mrs. Jones. Are there any matters that the court needs to address before we get started?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Scott, I'll be glad to hear from you.
Your Honor, for our first witness, I'd like to call Mrs. Steele to the stand.
Mrs. Steele, if you'll please come up to the witness stand. If you'll raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated. Mrs. Scott, you may proceed.
Thank you. Could you please state your name for the record?
Jamie Steele.
And Ms. Steele, could you please briefly just tell us why we're here today?
I want an order of protection against my husband,
And who is your husband?
Billy Steele.
All right. And Mrs. Steele, what county do you currently live in?
I live in Lawrence County, South Carolina.
And are you married to Mr. Steele?
Yes.
And do you have children?
Yes, we have two.
And could you please tell the court what happened to you that required you to file this action?
Well, it was a Saturday night and Billy was drunk. He had been drinking all day. He started getting irritated at every little thing and started accusing me of stuff. And next thing I know, he threw a lamp against the wall, and then he threw me up against the wall, and then he started choking me. The baby started crying, and he loosened his grip, and I was able to use that time to dial 911 and call the police.
Very good. And how do you think an order of protection could help with this situation?
Well, I think an order of protection would be able to keep him away from me. I'm afraid that it could happen again, or maybe even worse.
And is this the first time that he's been abusive to you?
Objection, Your Honor. This was the only incident that was alleged in the petition. There were no other incidents, and therefore those are not properly before the court.
Mr. Scott, that's true. We're going to stick to the facts pled today. Please move on to your next question.
Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Steele, did law enforcement come to your house that day?
They did.
And is Mr. Steele still facing any charges from that incident?
Yeah, a domestic violence second charge.
Okay. And do you have any injuries that resulted from this incident?
Yeah, well, I was sore, of course, from the struggle, and I also had bruises around my neck.
And do you have photos of those bruises?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Mrs. Steele, I have the photos. Do you recognize these photos?
Yes. Yes, those are the photos of the bruises that were around my neck.
Okay, very good. And do you remember who took those photos?
My sister did.
Okay, and can you tell me how they got from your sister's possession to your possession?
Well, she took the pictures on her phone, and then we looked at the pictures together. I saw her email them to the store, and then I picked them up from the store and brought them here.
Okay, very good. And do the photos accurately reflect the way your neck looked that night?
Yes.
Okay, and Your Honor, at this time I'd like to enter these photos as Petitioner's Exhibit Number 1.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Scott, if you'll hand those to the bailiff for me. And please let the record reflect that these have been marked as Petitioner's Exhibit 1. You may proceed, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Steele, at this time, are you asking the court to grant temporary custody of your children?
Yes.
And why do you think it would be in the best interest of the children to be in their mother's care?
Well, I've always been the one who was taking care of them while Billy was at work, and also he's been acting out a lot more lately, and I'm afraid he's just going to lose his temper with the children. I don't think that he should be the one in charge of them.
And are you asking the court to grant a temporary child support order?
Yes, definitely.
And is the financial declaration that you filed with the court with your petition, is that still accurate?
Yeah, I'm looking for a part-time job right now, but yes, as of right now, that is accurate.
All right. And if the court was to grant child support, would you prefer they pay that directly to you, or would you prefer that the payment be made through the state disbursement fund?
Well, if it's paid through the disbursement unit, does that mean I won't have any contact with him?
Correct.
Then yes, I want it done that way.
Okay. And do you think it's safe for the children for Billy to have visitation?
Well, they're so young and he's not willing to do anything for the baby, but maybe on weekends when he's not quite as stressed and only if he's not drinking, he can maybe have his mother help him out with the children.
And are you asking the court to place an order that while your children are in your husband's care, that he's not allowed to consume alcohol or be under the influence?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think it would be the best interest for the children to be under their mother's supervision?
Yes.
And do you feel that without an order of protection, you would suffer further abuse from Mr. Steele?
Yes, I have no doubt of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. That's all the questions I have for now.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Steele, isn't it true that you were also drinking on the night in question?
Yeah, I had a couple of beers.
Could you possibly have had more than a couple?
No, I think I just had a couple.
Did you have 3?
It may have been 3, 2 or 3. I'm not really sure, but I wasn't even drunk that night.
Okay. But isn't it true that you were also flirting with Billy's friend?
No, I was not flirting. I was talking to him because he's Billy's friend and he was a guest in the house. Billy always starts accusing me of things like this whenever he's drunk.
So you weren't purposefully trying to provoke Billy that night?
No, not at all.
Ms. Steele, did law enforcement take photographs on the night of the alleged incident when they came to the scene?
Yeah, they took some.
Didn't those photos show that there was no bruising at the time?
No, not on that day.
Okay, and did you bring those with you to court today?
No.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirects?
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly. Mrs. Steele, could you describe when the bruises on your neck occurred?
Well, of course, on the day of, my neck was just red, but about 2 or 3 days later, that's when the bruises developed, and then my sister took the pictures on her phone.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
You may return back to your seat. Thank you. Any other witnesses for the petitioner?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, we'd like to call Maria Sanchez.
Ms. Sanchez, if you'll come on up to the witness stand for me. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You may be seated. Please introduce yourself and answer any questions that Mr. Scott or Mrs. Jones may have for you.
Could you please introduce yourself and then just briefly describe to the court how you know the Steeles?
My name is Maria Sanchez, and I am the Steele's neighbor. We've been neighbors for a few years.
Okay, and do you remember the Saturday in question that Ms. Steele talked about in her testimony?
Yes, I do.
And could you describe to the court what you remember?
So it was pretty late at night. I was in my living room watching some TV. It was maybe midnight. I heard my doorbell ring, and then I heard a bunch of knocking, like frantic knocking. As I got close to the door, I could hear somebody yelling, help, let me in, help. I recognized it was Jamie's voice. I opened the door. She was crying, very upset. Her clothes looked roughed up, and she was kind of gasping for air, and she told me what Billy had done to her. So as soon as she told me that, I went ahead and called the police, and they came to my house.
And then what happened after that?
So when the police got there, they asked if they could talk to Jamie alone in my house so that she wouldn't have to be near Billy, and I said, yes, that's fine, and then they left.
And at this time, how did Mrs. Steele appear to you?
Like I said, she was really upset, she was crying, she was a mess. I mean, her clothes were wrinkled up, it looked like she had been roughed up.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mrs. Jones, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Sanchez, you've always had a pretty good relationship with the Steeles. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
And would you say on the night of the alleged incident when Ms. Steele came to your house, was she drunk?
No, I can't say for sure, but maybe she had. No, I don't think so.
Well, you couldn't say for sure, but doesn't she routinely drink on Saturday nights? And haven't you seen her on Saturdays when she's been drinking?
No, I wouldn't say that.
So would you say she parties on the weekends a good bit?
I wouldn't say that either. She might drink 1 or 2 beers every now and then.
Okay, well, what would you say?
Objection, Your Honor.
No further questions.
Ms. Sanchez, did you notice any bruising around Mrs. Steele's neck?
What I noticed was when she was talking to the officer, I saw her pointing to her neck, and then I noticed some red marks around her neck, but I didn't see any like purple bruises at that time. I saw those a few days later.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. You may return to your seat. Any other witnesses from the petitioner?
Not at this time.
All right. Mrs. Jones, would your client like to testify?
No, Your Honor. I have advised him to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights in light of the pending criminal charge. I would like to point out a couple of things, though. We believe Ms. Steele's testimony is not accurate due to her intoxication on the night of the incident. She didn't even remember how many drinks she had had. Also, we have not seen the photos that law enforcement supposedly took on the night of the alleged incident. And finally, my client does not believe the court needs to order child support. He has always cared for his children financially, and he would also request that he have phone contact with them on a daily basis.
All right. Anything else from the attorneys?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So based on the evidence presented to me today, including the testimony from all witnesses, I find that Mrs. Steele's testimony is credible and meets the burden required for me to grant the order of protection. I'm also going to grant custody, temporary possession of the marital home, and child support, which will be paid through the clerk's office through the state disbursement unit. I will order visitation to take place on Friday at 6 to Sunday at 6, and the exchanges will be at the Lawrence County Public Library. This order of protection will be for a period of 6 months. Your attorneys can file a more extensive family court action, and these matters will be considered at length. If you both please will wait outside for your copy of the order, the bailiff will bring it to you shortly. Best of luck to you both.